Okay, so I'm going to get started by just welcoming you guys officially and formally. Welcome to all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone online as well. We're going to start our class today with a meditation to give you guys a little taste of the meditation and help you guys experience that a bit. And then afterwards, I'm going to move into our course and helping you guys to understand an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha so you can understand more about what he taught. And then by the time we finish, I'm actually going to teach you his very first teaching that he actually taught as his very first teaching. So welcome to you guys that are here and welcome to everyone online. If you'd like to join for meditation, what I do is I start with chanting to ease us into meditation. This chanting, it's not anything mystical or magical. It's not a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship or anything like that. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to your memory, that he taught everything orally. And then once every 2 weeks, he would come together with his students and they would recite his teachings word for word for word. And this is how they started chanting. So it's not a prayer or worship or anything mystical or magical. It was just to commit the teachings to memory. But we don't need to chant in order to commit the teachings to memory anymore because we have books and videos and podcasts and things like this. If you'd like to see these chants, you're welcome to see them because they're on a sheet over there. I have a laminated sheet. You're welcome to get one if you'd like. It has the chants that I'm going to be doing because it's in the Pali language, but it also has the English translations too, so you can see what I'm actually chanting. You can even chant along if you like. After the chanting, I'm going to give you some guidance during the meditation so you can understand how to meditate. Then there'll be a period of time where we'll just be meditating together. Those of us here and everyone joining online will just all be meditating together. And then we'll come out of the meditation with some chanting. And then that's where I'll start the class and helping you guys understand the teachings of the Buddha. If you haven't meditated before, maybe you're looking for some guidance for how to sit. There's 4 positions that the Buddha taught for meditation. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking. A lot of times students are learning in the seated position. So I'll give you guys guidance in the seated position. You can sit on the floor, you can sit in a chair, you can sit on a sofa or a couch or a wheelchair, whatever you would like. There's not just one way to sit because you're not training the body, you're training the mind. But if you are on the floor, having your legs lightly crossed is best. Whereas if they're real tight, you might impede your circulation and cause pain in the body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles and allows the circulation to flow. The hands and the arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together and he put this into his lap. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees, their palms up. Some people like to put their palms in their lap, just rest their hands comfortably. So it's whatever's comfortable for you. We even have chairs. If you'd like a chair, feel free to help yourself to a chair because you're not interested in the body being painful. You would like the body to be comfortable. And then that way you can actually train the mind. Then it's time to meditate. So normally what I do is after I teach you about the body position, it's time to meditate. So if you guys would like to chant along, the sheets over there, you're welcome to get one. I'm going to go ahead and chant. Yeah, go ahead and feel free to help yourself to get one. She's going to get a chanting sheet. I'm going to chant and you guys are welcome to chant along and then I'll guide you in the meditation when we get into the meditation. Then I'm going to start the class afterwards. Okay? Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Wat Tung Bhagavanang Apivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma สัพพุตัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัพพุตัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัพพุตัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Once the breath is well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวาโอตังมหาเกวันนังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสนังโอโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. This was just a short, brief little meditation just to get you guys kind of oriented with a little bit of the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha's teachings are to train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state. I'm going to help you to understand more about what this is. And meditation is one aspect of the training that you use in order to get to the enlightened mental state, but it's not the only thing. You'll need other things as well to be able to get to enlightenment. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you guys some teachings over the next couple of hours to be able to help you understand more about what the teachings of the Buddha are and introducing you to these teachings. First, let's just talk about what a Buddha is before we even start talking about his teachings. What a Buddha is it's an individual who gets to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They then dedicate the rest of their life to sharing those independently discovered teachings, and they share their teachings with countless people, and countless people get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people can get to enlightenment after their death. Just a little bit brief thing of what enlightenment is. It's where your mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You don't experience any discontentedness any longer. There's no anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this is eliminated from the mind. So this individual, Gotama Buddha or the Buddha, he figured out how to do this by himself without the help of any teachers or any guides. Then he dedicated the rest of his life to helping other people get to enlightenment through sharing what he did to be able to get to that. He shared it with other people, and countless people got to enlightenment. From the age of 35 to 80, that's when he shared his teachings. Up until that time, he was making his way to enlightenment. From the age of 29 to 35, that's when he was working on getting to enlightenment. But by the age of 35, he got to enlightenment, and then for 45 years, he helped countless people get to enlightenment. Then he preserved his teachings so that countless more people could get to enlightenment after his death. One of the qualities of the mind of a Buddha, which helps them to be able to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides, is they have a very deep, profound memory. They can remember countless things from their current life and their past lives too. That, for example, in your mind, you have a certain capacity. And when you get to that capacity, you have to delete old files in order to store new files, kind of like a hard drive. You have like 500 gigabytes or 1 terabyte. And that's why when you think back to your childhood, you just have spotty memories because you've had to delete those files in order to store these new files. The last 5 years of your life, perhaps. You kind of remember pretty much what you've been up to. But long in the past, like your childhood, you just have spotty memories. An individual who's going to become a Buddha, that's not the way their mind functions. They have an unlimited capacity. They can remember countless details about their current life and their past lives too. And they accumulate all that wisdom in order to get to the point where they can apply that wisdom and actually get to enlightenment themselves in their last life. So they apply all that wisdom to be able to train their mind to get to enlightenment. Then the other thing about a Buddha is that they can quickly determine the mind of somebody else. And they only do this in order to help that person be able to get to enlightenment. So an individual who's a Buddha, they can observe the quality of a student's mind, and then they can help them. If that student's open to learning, they can help them with teachings that be able to help them train their mind. And then the last thing that I'll share in terms of a criteria of what makes a Buddha is that they're a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. Whatever they teach, that's what they're practicing too. Because a Buddha understands that they're teaching their students just as much through their spoken words as they are through their actions. Their actions are helping their students to learn. So a Buddha is going to be practicing their teachings to perfection. This is why we call them a fully, perfectly enlightened one. Because they don't have any teachers or any guides. They're not holding on to any baggage. So what they know is exactly what it takes to get to enlightenment. And they can explain that to you very clearly of what it takes to be able to get to enlightenment. So these are the main criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. In Gotama Buddha, he meets all of these criteria. He lived over 2,500 years ago. He was born in 563 BCE, and then he died in 483. So he died after 80 years, and he helped countless people get to enlightenment during his life and after his death. So he meets all these criteria. Okay, so this is what a Buddha is. Let's talk a bit about what the teachings of the Buddha are. What the teachings of the Buddha are is it's a path to attaining enlightenment in this life through purification of your mind. Basically, the Buddha discovered these individual pollutions in the mind of what's hindering you from experiencing this enlightened mental state. And then he figured out the tools and techniques of how to eliminate those pollutions so that you can experience enlightenment. What enlightenment is it's a mental state that you attain in this life. You can also attain it at death as well, but ultimately you would like to attain it during this life because then you can enjoy the rest of your life in this peaceful and joyful mental state. So it's where the mind's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. And it's a permanent mental state. Once you attain this mental state, it's impossible for you to ever experience anger or frustration or agitation or sadness or any of these other discontent feelings ever again. You'll notice that there's none of these discontent feelings that I have here, all those that I mentioned earlier. Your mind will be performing optimally by that point. So you'll have focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory because you've eradicated the pollutions of mind that are causing your mind to be shaken up. So your mind's performing optimally by the time you get to enlightenment. That's why you have focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. You'll notice that you'll have deep wisdom about the path to enlightenment, and you'll be able to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to everybody in your life. That right now, you probably find that to be challenging. There's probably certain people that you're not polite to or that you're not respectful to. And that's just because the mind has certain pollutions. When you eradicate those from the mind, you'll be able to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to everybody and anybody in your life. Then you'll notice that you won't be causing any harm to other beings. So therefore, harm isn't going to come to you. You'll notice that your personal, professional relationships are really blossoming. Because when you're in a relationship, if you're being bitter and harsh and hostile, this is just damaging your relationship. And then when you're putting that out, that's what comes back to you. But when you can transform your mind and you're only being loving and kind, polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, that's what's going to come back to you. So Your personal and professional relationships will be conducted with ease by the time you get to enlightenment, because your mind is no longer hindered by these pollutions. When we talk about these pollutions from a high level, it's referred to as craving, anger, and ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality. But in more detail, they're referred to as the 10 fetters. They call them fetters because during ancient times, if you were a prisoner and they were keeping you confined to a certain area, they would attach a fetter to your leg. There would be a shackle and a chain and a ball, and it would keep you trapped in a certain area, just an open field, and they would keep you trapped in that area. You were confined. So when the Buddha talks about these pollutions, looking at that fetter, he was like, these are fetters. This is what's keeping you trapped in the unenlightened state. It's keeping you confined. So when we talk about them from a high level, it's craving, anger, and ignorance. I'll just give you a brief little summary of what these are. What craving is when the mind's longing, yearning. It's having selfish desires. It's wanting things to be a certain way. The mind is craving and desiring for others to be a certain way, or you want something to be a certain way. The mind's craving permanence. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst. The mind is chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing. It's like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide lasting satisfaction. It's like the grass is always greener on the other side, and the mind just chases after it. And then if you get what you want, you get happy, you get excited. But if you don't get what you want, you get sad, or you get frustrated, or you get angry. And now when this anger is arising, that's where you become unskillful in your intentions, your speech, and your actions. You start being bitter and harsh and hostile towards people, and now you damage your relationships. Because the mind in the unenlightened state misunderstands what the problem is. The mind thinks that the anger is coming from something external. You are making me angry, or you are frustrating me, or you are annoying me. But really, it's actually occurring in your own mind because of your craving. That if the mind gets what it wants, it's happy. But if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets angry. So the mind, with its lack of wisdom, thinks the problem is external. So when you become angry, the mind might push people away, or it pushes a situation away. This is called aversion. Or you might be bitter, harsh, and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Or you might put your expectations on people and try to control people to get people to do things your way. And this is the mind thinking, if I can just get my cravings fulfilled, everything will be perfect. So that's why the mind's pushing things away. It's trying to get its cravings fulfilled. Or if you're being bitter, harsh, and hostile, it's like trying to scare somebody or fear somebody to do things your way, because the mind's trying to get those cravings fulfilled. Or if you put your expectations on people, once again, the mind's trying to control somebody to do things my way. And the mind just thinks, if I can get what I want, everything will be perfect. But that doesn't actually solve the problem. And where this craving and anger is coming from is this third one, the ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality. I tend to not refer to it as ignorance, because this is like a derogatory word where you're talking down to somebody. This is being translated from the teachings of the Buddha, and some people use the word ignorance, and that's why I use it, because if you guys study with someone else, you'll know what they're teaching. The phrase that I prefer to use here is unknowing of true reality, or the misunderstanding or confusion, that the mind is having misperceptions. It just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. The mind's lacking wisdom. In the unenlightened state, with a lack of wisdom, we will firmly believe that somebody else is causing us to be angry. Right? We'll firmly believe that. We will argue and fight with this person to try to convince them to stop doing what they're doing, because the mind's having craving. The mind wants somebody to do something a certain way. But this is just coming from the mind's lack of wisdom. So the teachings of the Buddha are teaching you how to eliminate craving, anger, and ignorance. Eradicating this and purifying the mind, then the mind can experience the brightness and the radiance of the enlightened mind. One of the ways you can think about it is, if you have the sun and the clouds are in front of the sun, you can't see the sun and the sun can't come out. But when you get those clouds out of the way, the rays of the sun will come shining through. So even though we say attain enlightenment, one of the ways you might think about it is your mind is already enlightened, and you just got to get the pollutions out of the way. And when you get the pollutions out of the way, now the brightness and the radiance of the enlightened mind can shine through. And this is the high-level description of those pollutions, that you're working to understand what they are and how to eradicate them. And the Buddha is teaching you how to eliminate them from the mind. So that's part of the training that you do. It's essentially learning about the human mind. So the path to enlightenment is a purification of the mind and purifying the mind so you can get those clouds out of the way and the brightness and the radiance can shine through. One of the things that you're awakening to when we talk about awakening to enlightenment is the natural laws of existence. This is what the Buddha taught. He taught you these natural laws. He didn't explain to you the way the world should be, and that if everybody follows these rules and commandments, then the world will become a peaceful place. That's not what he did. He didn't try to guilt, shame, or fear you into learning anything. He didn't give you rules and commandments. He didn't teach rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship. What he did is he's teaching you the way the world is. So he's not teaching you about a bunch of beliefs, and that if you believe these things, then when you die, something good's going to happen. That's not what he did. What he's doing is he's explaining to you the way the world is. Because when you live in a world that you don't understand, you will struggle. You'll have difficulties because you don't understand the world that you live in. So there's these natural laws that are functioning and affecting you all the time, whether you're aware of it or not. Just like the natural law of gravity. It affected all of us when we were young kids, whether we were aware of it or not. And we made unwise decisions when we were a child. That's why we tripped and fell and we hurt ourselves and we broke our toys. But slowly but surely, we cultivated wisdom of this natural law of gravity. And as we did, we started making wiser choices. And now we get wholesome results or wholesome karma. We experience this wholesome results because we're now operating with this natural law of gravity out of wisdom, not because it's a rule or a commandment, but because we have more wisdom. So for example, this cup behind me, I don't put it here in front of me, not because anybody told me not to do that, but knowing the natural law of gravity, if I put it here, it's only a matter of time before it gets knocked over. But I've made the wise choice to put it behind me because I know that's a better choice, because I have wisdom and I'm operating through that wisdom, that's a better choice. So when we understand these natural laws that the Buddha taught, we will naturally make wiser choices in the world about how we interact in the world. And now we'll experience more wholesome results. So this natural law of karma, it's affecting us whether we're aware of it or not. You might have heard this called karma. This is the Sanskrit version of the word, where the original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language. So people who study the original teachings of the Buddha will tend to use the Pali word of karma. What it means is cause and effect, or action and result, the results of your decisions. So it's your life, it's your decisions, and it's your results. When you make decisions wisely, it will produce wholesome results or wholesome karma. But when you make decisions unwisely, it's going to produce unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. So the Buddha is helping you to understand this natural law. So more and more with this wisdom, you will be able to see the truth for yourself. So what he does is he invites you to learn his teachings, to examine them, to investigate them. Then you reflect on those teachings to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. Then you practice his teachings by integrating them into your life, and you start training your mind. And this is where you see the real transformation occurring, because as you're getting rid of those pollutions, your life becomes more peaceful. Your mind becomes more joyful. You notice your relationships are improving. So that's why his teachings aren't based on belief, because you're learning now, examining his teachings, reflecting on those now to independently verify them, and then you're practicing them now. So you see the results now in this life. Your mind starts becoming more and more peaceful and more joyful. So you're learning, reflecting to independently verify, and practicing. And in this way, you're cultivating wisdom to transform that ignorance or that unknowing of true reality. And the more wisdom you cultivate of these natural laws, you will understand the world you live in. Because when you're angry or sad or frustrated or feeling guilty or shameful, this is the mind that's living in a world that it doesn't understand. The mind's struggling. It's having difficulties. And now when you awaken to the wisdom of these natural laws, you can purify your mind, and now you can exist peacefully in the world because you understand how the world functions. But as long as you don't understand how the world functions, you can't live in the world peacefully. You're going to experience difficulties and struggles. So the Buddha didn't explain the way the world should be, and then if everybody follows these rules and commandments, the world will become a peaceful place. He's explaining the way the world is. And when you understand the way the world is through these natural laws, you will make wiser decisions and navigate the world more readily. The training of the mind is what produces the peace and the joy. By acquiring wisdom of these natural laws, you will eradicate all the pollution in the mind so that you can eradicate all the struggles and difficulties in your day-to-day life. Other things about what the teachings of the Buddha are is his teachings are timeless. That his teachings, he's describing the natural laws of existence that existed during his lifetime, and those natural laws haven't changed. That now we live in a different time, but those natural laws are exactly the same. They haven't changed from his life to our life. So he spoke in a way that's timeless, that if you understand the natural laws that he's describing from during his lifetime, it's the same natural laws that exist today. So that's why his teachings are timeless, and he spoke in a way that is timeless. He spoke very clear, very concise, and very precise. You don't have to interpret his words. You don't have to figure out what he's saying. He just says it very clearly of exactly what the teachings are. He did teach about the cycle of rebirth in 5 realms of existence: the hell realm, animal realm, afflicted spirits, the human realm, and the heavenly realm. And this is also something that you don't believe. You never believe the cycle of rebirth or the 5 realms of existence. But as you learn and you practice and you train your mind, you can actually independently verify the cycle of rebirth. You probably don't have the wisdom of how to do that right now, but as you learn and grow and develop, you can get to the point where you can independently verify that. I usually suggest to people when they first start learning to set the cycle of rebirth to the side, because what's happened in the past, it's in the past. It doesn't matter right now. And what's happened in the future, it's in the future. It doesn't matter, because right now you're in this human existence. This future thing hasn't happened yet, so don't worry about it. Right now, your mind's unenlightened, and you can train your mind to get to enlightenment. But there may become a time, maybe a year and a half, 2 years from now, after you've been practicing and training your mind and seeing a lot of benefits, that you're ready to start looking to independently verify the cycle of rebirth. And that's where in volume 11, chapter 105 of this book series, I share in there how to independently verify the teachings on the cycle of rebirth. The Buddha taught this for a reason. First of all, because it's the truth. It is the truth. You can independently verify the cycle of rebirth. And he's explaining the way the world is. He's not explaining the way the world should be or what he imagined. He's not explaining his opinions or views. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And this is the way the world is, but your mind just doesn't understand that now. But later, you could independently verify it if you'd like. But some of the other reasons why he taught about the cycle of rebirth is because as you're getting more and more enlightened and your mind's moving to a higher consciousness and you're getting the pollution out of the mind, you might actually get to a point where you start observing your past lives. You start noticing within your own mind that you're having memories of things in the past. And if you have these deep, profound memories of, say, you were murdered in the past, you know you're not murdered now because you're still alive. But if you were murdered in the past and you start having those memories, it could really shake you up. Or say you had some unfortunate situation in the past, maybe you had been sexually abused or something like this, and you started having these memories, it might be really challenging for you if you didn't realize that that was in a past life. So this is one of the reasons why the Buddha taught it to you, because as you're observing past lives, you need to be able to understand this is in the past. Another thing is, as your mind is becoming more and more enlightened, you might actually experience communication with these beings in the other realms. The hell realm, of course, you've been in contact with animals in the animal realm. The afflicted spirit realm, which are ghosts. The human realm, of course, you've been in contact with beings in the human realm, and then the heavenly realm. Oftentimes we view these realms as being really far away, some distant land, but they're actually not. All these beings are right here in the same time and space as us. So it's possible for these beings to communicate with you, and you can hear them. And if you didn't understand what that is, you might think you're going crazy. You might think you have schizophrenia or something like that if you started hearing voices that other people didn't hear. This is beings from within these other realms. And then the third reason why he taught it is that as your mind's becoming more awake and less polluted, you might actually see these beings. Some people can see hell beings, or ghosts, or afflicted spirits, or even heavenly beings. You can actually see them. Their physical form, they don't have. They're formless beings, but some people can see them even though they're formless beings. So this would shake you up if you didn't understand the way the world is. So by understanding the way the world is, if you happen to see one of these beings, it's just normal. You don't have to be shaken up by it, right? So that's why the Buddha taught the cycle of rebirth, is because it's true, because you may observe your past lives, because you might have communication with these beings, or you might actually see them. And he's helping you so that your mind's not shaken up and you understand it's completely normal if these things occur. The Buddha the Buddha taught about God. Sometimes people think he didn't teach about God. He did teach about God, but he doesn't place God at the center of his teachings. Some traditions that you learn, they'll put God right in the middle of the teachings, and your whole goal is to worship God and praise God and things like this. But the Buddha didn't do that. He did teach about this being, but he didn't put God as the central role of his teachings, because it's not God who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's your decisions that determine whether you get to enlightenment. So he put you at the center of his teachings, because it's you that needs to learn and practice the teachings in order to train the mind. But he did teach about God, because this is a being that exists, and you can either get to enlightenment with a relationship with God or without. You don't have to. Just like your neighbor, you can have a relationship with your neighbor, and that'll be wonderful, because if you need somebody to watch your house, or you need to borrow some sugar or some salt, you can go to your neighbor and get some help. But you don't have to have a relationship with your neighbor, and you can still get through life just fine. So this being of God, it's the same way. You can have a relationship with this being, and it will help you, but you don't have to. You can still get to enlightenment without that. So the Buddha doesn't place God at the center of his teachings, because it's not God who determines that you get to enlightenment or not. So more about what the teachings of the Buddha are is the largest, most complete collection of these teachings that he has. It's called the Pali Canon. This is 45 large volumes of books that are about this thick. This is the largest, most complete collection we have of the teachings of the Buddha. It's referred to as the Pali Canon because it's written in the Pali language. Nowadays, it's been translated into other languages like Thai and English and things like this, but we refer to this as the largest, most complete collection of the teachings of the Buddha. During his lifetime, everything he taught was oral, but then shortly after his life, they wrote his teachings down. About 3 to 6 months after his death, they started writing his teachings down, because the technology to write things down didn't exist during the lifetime of the Buddha. It was in China, but it hadn't made its way to that part of the world. This was a new technology to write things down, right? We can't think of it that way because nowadays it's so prevalent, but during his lifetime, that was a new technology. Everything was oral during his life. So it wasn't until after he died that that technology made its way to that region of the world, and then they could write things down, and they preserved his teachings. So the discourses that he shared, his teachings were documented out of it after his death, and it's assembled into 45 volumes of books referred to as the Pali Canon. So this book series that I teach, it actually consolidates this into 13 books, because the 45 books, the reason why it's so thick is because there's a lot of repetition. When you teach in an oral tradition like the Buddha did, there's essentially 3 ways to help people learn your teachings. The first way is that you give people lists. Right? Like this is why we have the 4 Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 Precepts, the 7 Factors of Enlightenment, the 10 Fetters. Because if you remember 9 of the fetters and there's one more you can't remember, you're like, what is it? I know there's one more. What is it? What is it? Ah, okay, I remember it now, right? So you give people lists. The other way you get people to learn an oral tradition or help them to understand it is you tell stories. So the Buddha would oftentimes tell stories, because then you can remember the moral of the story. And then the third way that you get people to remember teachings in an oral tradition is repetition. So if you look at the teachings of the Buddha, he repeats things over and over and over and over and over again. And that's why we've got 45 large volumes of books. You could read 100 pages of the Pali Canon, and it could be like the same page being repeated over and over and over again, with like one sentence changing out of like 100 pages, right? So this book series, it consolidates it for you, because these 45 volumes of books, if you were to print them out, it's about probably $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 US dollars. The average Thai person, that's about 3 months of their salary. So like the average Thai people, they don't actually have access to the Pali Canon. The average temple doesn't even have access to this. Even though it's the largest, most complete collection of the teachings of the Buddha, the average person doesn't usually study the original words of the Buddha. Here in this community, we study the original words of the Buddha because that's what's going to lead to your enlightenment. But the average person doesn't. And that's why we don't see a lot of people in the world that are enlightened, because they're not studying with the original words of the Buddha. But the more you get to the original teachings that he taught, you'll be able to see that what he actually taught and move your mind to enlightenment. So one of the things that I did is this book series consolidates the Pali Canon into smaller versions of books, and then I give it away for free because I can put it on the internet and you can download it for free, which wasn't possible even just 50 years ago or 20 years ago. So you can download it for free. You can take it and go print it yourself if you like. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon if you'd like to get access to it on Amazon. And it's very inexpensive comparative to the 45 volumes of books. And this is what you'll be able to use to be able to help you to learn his teachings and get to enlightenment. I refer to it as the words of the Buddha, the path to enlightenment, revealing the hidden, because we're revealing these hidden teachings. They haven't been hidden intentionally. It's just because of the barrier of the finances that most people don't have access to his original teachings. So we're revealing these hidden teachings. Essentially, the way that you can summarize what the teachings of the Buddha are is that they're to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to ever hurt again. That's essentially what his teachings are. It's to do this inner work and to look inwards and train your mind to eradicate the things that are hurting you. Oftentimes we think it's the external world that's hurting you, but it's actually internal. It's within your own mind. And when you learn that, and then you apply the tools and techniques to fix it, you can eliminate the things that are hurting you. And you never need to hurt ever again. You can get to the point where your mind's always peaceful and always joyful. So this is one of the ways that I think about the teachings of the Buddha, is that it's to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt again. But you need to know what's hurting you. And that's why I'm going to share with you the first teaching of the Buddha by the time we're finished with our class today, because that's what's going to tell you what the problem is in your mind, the cause of it, the elimination of it, and the path forward, and how to fix it. So that's the breakthrough that you can have to finally be able to understand what's causing your discontent feelings. Now let's talk about what the teachings of the Buddha aren't, because this is going to help you to understand what the teachings of the Buddha are. They aren't a collection of beliefs, doctrine, concepts, opinions, or views that will produce a pleasant afterlife if you believe in them, and an unpleasant afterlife if you don't believe in them. There's actually no beliefs in the teachings of the Buddha whatsoever, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or maybe you convinced yourself to believe it. So there's no beliefs in the teachings of the Buddha. You're not believing a bunch of things and hoping something good happens when you die. They're also not views and opinions or doctrine or rules or commandments. They're the natural laws, and you can independently verify that they're true. His teachings, in my opinion, aren't a religion. A lot of people think about the teachings of the Buddha as a religion, but when I think about religion, I think about one person at the top, and these people have maybe collected up teachings, and now they disseminate them out through the world, and there are certain rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship that are assigned to these teachings. And this one person, sometimes in an organized religion, is essentially telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing in their life. And now there might be rites or rituals or ceremonies or worship. There might be rules and commandments that everybody must follow. If you think of religion in this way, the teachings of the Buddha aren't that. There isn't just one person at the top of Buddhism. There aren't rules and commandments to follow. There aren't any rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship at all. If you see any of those things attributed to the teachings of the Buddha, that's not what the Buddha taught. And you can see it in his original teachings. There are no beliefs. There's no rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship. Even these chants that we do, these are to help ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation. It was to commit the teachings to memory. It's not a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony. The Buddha probably didn't even create these chants. They were probably created by his students, because you see a lot of respect and gratitude and admiration for the Buddha. A Buddha wouldn't walk around teaching people to chant things to him out of respect and admiration for him, because he would have eliminated his arrogance and his pride and his ego. So he wouldn't have taught people to chant these things. But if you learned from a teacher how to move from this anger and sadness and frustration to this peaceful and joyful mental state, and this is a permanent mental state, and this teacher didn't want anything from you, they didn't expect anything from you, you'd probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for that person too. So these students, I suspect, created this either during his life or after his death. So there aren't any rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship. There's no rules and commandments, and there's not just one person at the top. You are on your own independent journey to enlightenment. A teacher, we're essentially like a tour guide. We're pointing out for you the things that you need to learn and understand, but it's you that's choosing to walk forward and learn the teachings. We're just a tour guide. It's your journey to enlightenment. So there's not just one person at the top telling you what to do. Even me, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'll teach you about the natural law, and then you decide for yourself what you would like to do. It's your life, it's your decisions, and it's your results. And I can teach you about the natural law, but then it's up to you to decide whatever you would like to do, because it's your life, your decisions, and your results. Okay, so the teachings of the Buddha are not a religion. They're also not about punishments and rewards. Sometimes when people learn these kinds of things, they think it's all about punishments and rewards. That's not what the teachings of the Buddha is. He's not guilting and shaming or fearing you into anything. He's not talking about punishments and rewards. He's just showing you the decisions that you make are either wise and it's going to lead to wholesome results, or here's unwise decisions that you can make that will lead to unwholesome results. And then you choose for yourself whatever you would like to do, right? If anything, you're punishing yourself when you make unwise decisions, right? There are also not any kind of mystical or magical things. There isn't any superstition or auspicious things in the teachings of the Buddha. Even though some people might attribute these kinds of things to the Buddha, that's not what he actually taught. So if you see any kind of mystical or magical things or auspicious or superstitious things, the Buddha didn't teach that. It's all about wisdom and training your mind. The teachings of the Buddha aren't something to attempt to force other people to do. This is your practice. If you choose to get on the path to enlightenment, it's for you to learn and grow and develop. Essentially, it's a self-help program. It's for you to learn how to improve the condition of your mind. And when you improve the condition of your mind, it'll improve the condition of your life, because everything that you experience is experienced through your mind. So if you can purify your mind, now you'll look out at the world as a very different place. When you have pollution, it's like looking out at the world through a dirty window. But when you clean off the pollution, things look different now when you look out at the world through your mind and it's nice and clean. The teachings of the Buddha, they're also not these short, catchy phrases. If you get on Facebook and you see posts that'll have a short little catchy phrase, then they'll put the name the Buddha, right? 99.9% of the time, the Buddha never said those things, right? This is like somebody that came up with some statement and they just put the Buddha's name there to attribute it to him. But if you go off and you research these things, you'll see that the Buddha didn't actually say them. So there's not these short little catchy phrases. It's actually teachings that are going to help you to train your mind and awaken to wisdom. Also, his teachings aren't stuck in a cultural past that degrades and denigrates other people. Sometimes people say, the Buddha denigrated women. You will never see anywhere in the teachings of the Buddha where he does that. There might be people today who are choosing to do that, but you'll never see in the teachings of the Buddha where he denigrates anybody. An enlightened being wouldn't do that. Instead, he was teaching people to be respectful and kind and polite and loving and all these kinds of things. Men to women and women to men too. So he doesn't denigrate or degrade women or men or people who prefer same-gender relationships or anything like that. He teaches respect and gratitude for all people and politeness and kindness and love for all people. So his teachings aren't stuck in a cultural past because he's explaining the natural laws, right? So he doesn't teach based on culture. He's teaching based on the natural laws. Okay? So any questions on what the Buddha's teachings are or what they aren't? For those of you guys here, if you guys could use the microphones because we have people online joining us. And then for those of you guys online, you can put your question into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand and ask any questions that you like. You guys have any questions? No? Okay. Would you guys like to learn the very first teaching of the Buddha? Yeah? Okay. So what I'll do then is I'll go into the very first teaching. This is called the Four Noble Truths, Establishing Right View. What this is going to do for you is it's going to help you to finally understand once and for all what's causing your anger and your frustration and your irritation and your annoyance. And I'm going to teach it to you in a way that you can independently verify it. You don't believe what I have to say. Don't believe the books that I write. Don't believe anything, because belief, you don't know what's true or false. You need to get to wisdom. So I'm going to walk you through in a way that you can intellectually understand and learn it and examine it. Then I'm going to show you how to reflect on it, to independently verify it. And then I'm going to teach you how to practice it so you can get the results from the teaching. And with the Four Noble Truths, you can have this breakthrough where you finally understand what the problem is in your mind, the cause of it, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And now you'll be set up to be able to go forward. And if you'd like, to start the path to enlightenment and training your mind and getting to more peace and more joy. To understand the Four Noble Truths, it's to understand that it's part of the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha. And the Four Noble Truths is the very first teaching. It's called right view. You're going to learn how to establish right view. But the Eightfold Path is the core central teaching that everything else plugs into. And it's organized in wisdom section, moral conduct, and mental discipline. So the wisdom section forms the foundation. And now you build on top of that the moral conduct. Whenever you see the Buddha teaching about moral conduct, he's teaching you about the natural law of karma. He's not giving you any rules or commandments. He's not telling you what you should or shouldn't do in your life, but he's showing you, based on the natural laws, this is a wise way to speak. This is a wise way to conduct your actions. This is a wise way to perform a livelihood, meaning sustain your life. And he's teaching you to do this without harm to other beings, because if you cause harm to others, harm will come back to you. So how you choose to speak, it's your own personality, it's your own character, but he teaches you the natural laws about how to speak in wise ways that doesn't cause harm to others. Because you can think you have all the best intentions in the world and you can speak, and then people come at you with a lot of hostility and anger or bitterness. But when you speak wisely, then you'll know that if somebody else gets bitter or harsh and hostile, you're not causing that. It's coming from their own mind, right? So you would like to be able to learn how to speak more and more wisely. So whenever you see moral conduct, he's explaining to you this cause and effect of certain things you can do with your moral conduct that's going to cause harm, and now harm is going to come back to you. And then ultimately he teaches you the mental discipline of how to train your mind, because to implement the moral conduct, you're going to need to train your mind, because we can talk about being loving and kind all day, but when you go out in the world, you'll find it very difficult if you haven't been training your mind and disciplining your mind. So you're going to need to train your mind. So that's what this section is. It's all about the mental training. And this is training you in the wisdom of moral conduct and how to practice your moral conduct. And then this is the foundation. But today we're going to just be talking about right view, because this is the first teaching that you need to understand. In order to understand the Four Noble Truths, you need to first understand the three universal truths. These are like building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. We call them truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true too. But in order for you to get the benefit, you're going to need to know they're true. And that's why you don't believe what I have to say. I'm going to show you how to learn, reflect, to independently verify, and practice. So let's take the first one, the universal truth of impermanence. Remember, the Buddha is explaining to you the way the world is. What he's explaining to you is that the world is impermanent, that everything around you is constantly changing. It's called a conditioned object. Conditioned objects, they arise, they change, and they fade away. And everything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, or flavors on your tongue, things that come in contact with the body, and then your thoughts and your ideas, all these things are impermanent, meaning they're constantly changing. Okay, so this is the universal truth of impermanence. It's constant change. That's what a conditioned object is. Then there's something called unconditioned objects. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. They are permanent. The natural laws of existence, they're unconditioned. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. Enlightenment itself is permanent. Once you get to enlightenment, it's a permanent mental state. But everything in the world, meaning everything you can see, hear, smell, taste, touches the body, and that comes through the mind, all these things, they're all impermanent. Okay, so this is a little bit of the learning. But now you don't believe it, right? You just learned it. Now you start reflecting on it to independently verify it. You need to verify with what I'm saying, is it true or is it untrue? So if I'm sharing with you that everything in the world is impermanent, then what I'm sharing with you is there's nothing around you that is permanent. So you can independently verify this. The way that you do it is you start with something you're familiar with. Start with your physical body. Ask yourself, is it permanent or impermanent? Because if it's permanent, that means it's been exactly the same your entire life. It's never changed. If it's impermanent, that means your physical body is changing. So what would you say? Is this body permanent or impermanent? 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 Yep, you see, right? Like we get taller, we get fatter, we get gray hair, we get pimples, we get moles, we lose our hair, all different kinds of changes, right? Our skin complexion changes constantly. Our teeth grow in, then they fall out, then they grow in some more. Our hair gets longer, we cut it. It gets longer again, we cut it. Our nails grow and we cut them. Things are constantly changing, okay? What about your relationships? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? If they're permanent, you've had exactly the same people in your life your entire life. If they're impermanent, that means people have been coming and going in and out of your life your whole life. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, right? They're constantly changing. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent. It's constantly changing, right? It's going up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. Some people's goes down, down, down. It's constantly changing. What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, right? So we could go on and on and on and on. And if you need to do that, because that's what you need to do to be able to see the wisdom, right? When you look around the walls of the temple and you see holes and marks, this is all impermanence. When you look at the floor, you see the wood planks. Some of them are certain length, certain colors. They're all different. There's not one wooden plank in this entire classroom that's exactly the same. They're all different. This is impermanence. Okay, so you can independently verify that yes, everything around the world is impermanent. And this is important when we get to the Four Noble Truths. It's a building block to help you. Okay, so that's the first universal truth, that everything around you is impermanent. Okay, the second universal truth is explaining to you the unenlightened mind. Here, the Buddha is explaining to you what the unenlightened mind is experiencing, which I refer to as discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. These are conditioned feelings that the unenlightened mind is going to experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. And these are referred to as conditioned feelings. What a conditioned feeling is based on some condition, you're going to have a feeling. So if it's sunny outside, you will be happy. So based on the condition of the sun, you are now happy, right? But then when that condition changes, now the mind experiences sadness or frustration. Or if your bank account balance is here, you will be happy. But then when your bank account balance goes here, you will be sad. These are called conditioned feelings. Some people refer to this particular universal truth as suffering, because in the original teachings in the Pali Canon, the word that's used is dukkha, and people will translate it to suffering. But when the Buddha talks about this, he describes it as pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. So the pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. This is very pleasant for the mind to experience. Then there's painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful for you to experience. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant. I put boredom and loneliness there, but some people say that that's quite painful. So you could put that in the painful category if you like, but maybe shyness is a good example. It's not painful, it's not pleasant. Or say you're on a public transportation and somebody you don't know comes and sits next to you and their body is touching your body. You might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Your mind is like uncomfortable during that period of time. So these are the three feelings that the Buddha is explaining to you that the unenlightened mind experiences. And this is a universal truth, that all unenlightened beings are going to experience discontentedness, conditional feelings, right? And I refer to this as discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. Okay, some people refer to this as suffering. I don't explain it as suffering, because when you're happy or you're excited, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering, right? Your mind's discontent. If you've ever been so excited that you tripped and fell, you can see your mind's discontent, but you're not suffering when you're happy or excited. And also those neither painful nor pleasant feelings. If that person you don't know comes and sits next to you in public transportation and your body's touching their body, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering, right? The painful feelings, yeah. That's pretty much suffering. Like when you're angry and sad and frustrated, you might say that you're suffering. So if you use the word suffering, you're only understanding 33% of what the Buddha taught, right? So if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, how could you ever get to the goal of enlightenment? So that's why I don't use that word suffering, because it doesn't explain the full spectrum of feelings that the Buddha was talking about. But the word discontentedness surely does. Okay, so the way that you independently verify this is that your mind is unenlightened. You ask yourself, is this what you experience? Do you experience pleasant feelings based on some condition? Do you experience painful feelings and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant? Because if this is a universal truth, it applies to everybody that's unenlightened. Okay, so you should be able to see every feeling that you've ever had. It fits into one of these three categories. Okay, then there's this universal truth of non-self. This one isn't really needed in order to understand the Four Noble Truths, but I'm going to explain it to you anyway and help you to understand what it is. Okay, so the universal truth of non-self is actually a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered. One of the 10 fetters is called personal existence view. This is where your mind has confusion or misunderstanding, where you're holding on to this body or this mind and thinking that this is who you are. The mind is clinging to a self-image or a self-identity, and it wants to be perceived in the world by others in a certain way. And now, when you're experiencing a certain agreeable contact or a certain agreeable thing, you will feel happy about that. But when you're not experiencing what you want, you will feel sad or angry or frustrated. So for example, say you're at a social situation and you spill spaghetti sauce all over your clothes, you might be embarrassed. The reason why is because your mind's clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are, and you want to be perceived by others in a certain way. And now, when you have clean clothes on and you look presentable, you're happy. But now when you have spaghetti sauce all over your clothing and other people are looking at you, you feel embarrassed. That's because you're clinging to this body, wanting other people to perceive you a certain way. Or if you looked in the mirror and you see a pimple or a mole, if you're shaken up by that, that's your personal existence view, where the mind is clinging to this body. Or if you have some gray hair, you're losing your hair, and you look in the mirror, maybe you have a little bit extra fat, you might be shaken up by that because your mind is clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. So the mind's clinging to a self-image. It can also happen with your self-identity. You might have a certain identity, like I am Australian, or I am Aussie, or I am Algerian, right? Or I forget where you're from. Yeah, this one, right? Whatever identity, your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, even your job or occupation. You could cling to this thinking that this is who you are and this is your identity, and now you can be shaken up when this isn't intact. So for example, if you've ever been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend and you identified with I am a boyfriend or I am a girlfriend or I am a husband or I am a wife, when you broke up, you might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship because your mind wanted to assume that identity of I am a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend. Because when you were single, your mind didn't identify that way. Or say you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody is talking negatively about the people from the country that you come from, and they're disparaging people that are from Australia. Well, if I am Australian, they're talking about me, and now I might feel like I want to fight, right? If they're talking bad about people from the country that I come from, right? That's your self-identity that your mind's clinging to. Or say you have a job. Say you're like a police officer and you've been doing this job for 10 years and now you get injured or you retire or something like that. If you identify with I am a police officer, when you can't do that job anymore, you'll struggle because you'll feel like a part of you is missing, like a part of you is gone. You don't feel whole anymore. This is the personal existence view. This is one of the pollutions that the Buddha discovered. So this is what the mind's doing in the unenlightened state when it has this pollution. So the universal truth of non-self, the Buddha is teaching you, this body, it's not you. It's not who you are. It's not permanent. It's going to be constantly changing. But if you cling to it and want it to be permanent, you're going to be frustrated or angry or irritated when it's not what you want. Or if you cling to an identity and you think, I am this, well, as soon as that changes because of impermanence, you'll be frustrated and be agitated and annoyed. So the universal truth of non-self is teaching you that this body nor this mind is you. It's not who you are as a person. So there's more to learn about the universal truth of non-self. This is just like an introduction to it. But when we go through some of the other programs and courses, I go into it in a lot more detail. But even now, you guys can independently verify that there is no self. Here's how you do it. Think about yourself when you were a child, teenager, early adulthood, and now. Your character, your personality. Have you viewed yourself as being the same all the way through this period of time, or has it been constantly changing? Constantly changing, right? You can see there's no permanent self. Or say your arm is amputated and you only have one hand and one arm. Yeah, come join us. You only have one hand and one arm. Are you less of a person if you only have one hand and one arm? You say no? You say no? No, right? You're not less of a person. You have less use of a hand and arm. So intellectually, you understand this body isn't you. Because if I ask you that question, if your arm is amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? Well, if this body is you, you would say, yes, I'm less of a person. But none of you guys said that. You said, no, I'm not less of a person. So you know intellectually that this body is not you. But that's where the mind's confusion comes in, the misunderstanding, that in the heat of the moment, when somebody says, you look so ugly, or whatever they might say, you get angry, you get frustrated because of this confusion of personal existence view. The mind's clinging to this personal existence view, the clinging to the self-image or self-identity. Now here's a third way you can independently verify the universal truth of non-self. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point? Where are you? Here. That's what people typically do, right? They point here or here. Okay, look at what you're pointing to. You're pointing to a shirt. Okay, so if I took off my shirt and I held it up, is that who I am? Is that who you are? That shirt you're wearing? That's not you, right? Okay, so let's throw away the shirt. Where are you? Someone might point again. Look at what you're pointing to. That's skin. Is that who you are? That skin that you've got? That's not you? You sure? So if I held up the skin and I pointed to it and I said, is that me? You would say, no, that's not you. Okay, so let's throw away the skin. Where are you? So I might point again. We've got ribs and bones. We've got muscle tissue. We've got organs and fluid. None of that is you. But the mind thinks that it is. That's why you'll cling to it. So when you hear agreeable things, when someone says, wow, you're so beautiful, you're so handsome. I feel good. Oh, they're talking about me, right? But then it's only a matter of time because of impermanence that someone's going to say, you're so ugly, or, whatever they say, right? Something degrading or disparaging. Well, if you let your mind get pleasant feelings when they're talking complimentary to you, when someone says something negative and degrading, you'll get angry. You'll get frustrated because your mind's wanting that permanence. You're going to see here in a moment. Your mind's wanting this permanence of hearing agreeable things. So if you identify with this body as being who you are, or this mind as being who you are, you'll get shaken up. So the Buddha is teaching you that there is no self, that this body isn't you and this mind isn't you. There is a being in existence. Like I see a human being sitting in front of me, but this body, this physical structures isn't you. It's not who you are. And as long as your mind clings to it, wanting it to be permanent, when you age and you look back and you want to be youthful, you'll be struggling in that situation. Or if you want to be thin and now you've gained a little bit of weight, you'll struggle in that situation. Or if you want a certain type of hair and you don't have that hair, you will struggle and you will have difficulties. So the Buddha is helping you to liberate your mind of these strong feelings by realizing this body isn't you. It's not who you are. This mind isn't you. It's not who you are. These are things that are in existence because there is a body, there is a mind, and it's come together, and we refer to this as a person. But the Buddha teaches you not to identify with this as being who you are as a person. Okay, so these are just building blocks to help you understand what I'm going to teach you next, which is the Four Noble Truths. Do you guys have any questions on this? No questions? Helena, you have a question? For those of you guys online, you can ask questions through Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. You can just put that in the comments section, and then in Zoom, you can raise your hand and ask questions if you like.
Thank you. I'm not sure how to ask this question, but there's a being, for example, this being. There's a being, there's a mind, there's a body. And what else is there? It seems like there's memory. Because this being is not the same being that it used to be, like that it was yesterday or even a minute ago. But there's that illusion of continuity. And it seems like it's based in memory. And what is memory?
That's just inside the mind. So you've got the mind like a container, like a cardboard box, and then there's contents inside that cardboard box or inside the mind. So your memories are inside the cardboard box. There's other things in there too, but that's where the memory is. It's just inside the cardboard box. It's intangible. It's non-physical.
So it would be like a function of the mind, memory.
Yeah, you could think of it that way. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's what the Buddha is teaching you not to cling to and hold on to, identify as that's you, because that stuff's always changing. As soon as you grab onto something and think this is who you are, that's going to change, and now you'll feel lost. Right? I know you've heard me share this before, but I'll let the other people know, like sometimes people come to Thailand and they're in search of themselves. I need to go find my true self. I don't even know who I am anymore. I got to go find myself. Well, they're not going to find themselves in Thailand because there is no self. They might come here and they find new friends, new hobbies, new activities. They might find a new job or occupation, but none of that's you. If you cling to any of that as being who you are, when all that stuff changes 5 years from now, you'll be shaken up. You'll be right back in the same problem. I don't know who I am anymore. I got to go find myself. There's some people that go on these long journeys to find themselves, and they never do. They think they do. Right? They might go back home like, oh, I feel so much better. I found myself. Really? Yeah, I'm an electrician who does this, and I have these hobbies and these activities. None of that's you, because all that stuff's going to change. And as soon as it does, you're going to be right back in the same issue where you don't know who you are anymore. So that's why the Buddha is teaching you that, is so that your mind doesn't have to go in that downward spiral and think that you don't know who you are, because you can just realize that there is no self, that all these things that I'm doing, they're just roles that I fulfill. So even me, like, I am not American. This body was born on a land that we refer to as America, but my mind doesn't identify with I am American, or like this role that I'm fulfilling as a Buddhist teacher. My mind doesn't even identify as I am a Buddhist teacher, because as soon as I'm not doing that anymore, then the mind's shaken up. So if I identify, like before I was a business owner, I am an entrepreneur. I am a business owner. Well, when you're not doing that anymore, you'll be shaken up by that. So your mind needs to let go of all of this and realize that all this I am, that's not who you are. Like some people say, like in a political environment, I am this, I am that, and now you'll fight to death because I am a Republican or I am a Democrat, and I will fight to the death. But the Buddha is teaching you don't identify with any of that, because that stuff's all changing. And if you cling to it, you're just opening yourself up to discontentedness.
And would you say that we only exist in the present moment, and that the present moment is everything that actually exists? Because if it's not from my memory, then I don't really have any proof of me existing in the past.
You are existing in the present moment, yes, there's a being that exists. So talking about the universal truth of non-self, it's not to say that there isn't a being in existence, because there is a being in existence. The Buddha is just teaching you not to cling to this body or this mind as who you are as a person. So there is an existence and there is a being here. And this being did exist in the past. We have documentation that says you were born on a certain day. This being was born on a certain day. We know that this being existed in the past, but whatever that being has been, that's not who you are. Here's a practical example to help you. Say like somebody used to use drugs and alcohol in the past, and now they no longer do those things anymore. But now they're being taught to identify with, I am an alcoholic. Well, I am not an alcoholic. I used to make choices to drink in the past, but I choose not to drink anymore. But that doesn't define who I am. The choices and decisions that I made in the past doesn't define who I am today as a person. Right? So this is very detrimental to the mind if you go around thinking, I am an alcoholic, I am an alcoholic, I am an alcoholic. It helps for people to realize they never should go back to alcohol. That's why they actually teach you that. But as soon as you identify with that as who you are, now you might feel guilty or shameful or less of a person or something like that, where you don't need to do that. You can just realize, hey, those are choices and decisions I made in the past, but I'm not making those choices anymore, and I'm not going to define myself through those choices. You see how it helps you, right? It can really help you in these situations. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. And one more thing, please. So permanent things, it is enlightenment and the laws of the universe. And I'm thinking in some cases, if somebody chooses to have a relationship with God, the creator, then that could potentially be a permanent relationship, couldn't it?
There's no relationship that is permanent, and there's no being that is permanent. Oftentimes people think about God as being permanent, but this being isn't permanent either. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so these are the three universal truths. These are building blocks to help you understand what I'm going to teach you next. And we've got one more building block to help you to understand the Four Noble Truths. This is the way to define what we call craving, desire, attachment, or wants or expectations. This is the mind longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection, pulling towards something. If you've ever been in the mall and you saw like a brand new pair of shoes and you're like, oh, brand new pair of shoes. Yes. Oh, I got to get those shoes. Or maybe a new cell phone or a new computer or a new video game where you are pulling towards something. Or maybe it's like, oh my gosh, he is so handsome. I need that guy right now. Or I need that woman right now. She's so beautiful. And your mind just wants to long and yearn for it. Chase after this thing. It's like the mind thinks the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? You experienced this before? You know what I'm talking about? Okay. It's the mind pulling towards something, longing, yearning. Okay. So now I'm going to explain to you, understanding what an expectation, a want, a longing, a yearning is. Now I'm going to explain to you what's causing your discontentedness. So in these four simple statements that you can independently verify, I'm going to explain to you the problem, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and then the path forward. This is where you can have a breakthrough to finally understanding what's causing your discontentedness. Because how could you ever eliminate your discontent feelings if you didn't know what was causing it? So the first noble truth is explaining the problem, that every unenlightened being is going to experience discontentedness. So everyone that is unenlightened are going to experience those conditioned feelings, the pleasant feelings, the painful feelings, and the feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. This is the mind going up and down based on some condition. It's sunny outside. I'm so happy. I get to go outside and play. Oh, it's going to be so fun. You go take a shower, you come out, and now it's raining. Oh, I'm so sad. I'm frustrated. This is the discontentedness. The mind's going up and down, experiencing conditioned feelings. Okay, that's the problem. The second noble truth is explaining the cause of this problem. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent, when in reality, Everything in the world is impermanent. It's constantly changing, right? So I'm going to explain that a few times and give you some examples. The discontentedness is caused by the craving, desire, attachment. Those pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant, is being caused by the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. The mind wants things to be permanent, but yet you live in an impermanent world. Okay, so here's some examples. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you had when you guys first got together. Oh, it was so wonderful. So much pleasant feelings. You had this longing, yearning to have somebody in your life, to show you affection. And you were longing, yearning for this person to come into your life. And now when you guys first got together, it couldn't be more perfect. You guys were having great conversations. You were going to the park. You were going to the movies. You were having dinner together. You might have even been having intimate contact at different times. Such pleasant feelings based on the condition of having a person in your life as a partner. But then over time, you started having these expectations. They started having expectations. They were angry. You were angry. And you guys split. You guys broke up. Now you might have been missing this person. You might have felt lonely or bored. You might have felt angry or frustrated, right? This is not from the love. It's not love that's causing this. It's the mind holding on, wanting this relationship to be permanent, when in reality, this relationship's impermanent. Every relationship's impermanent. So I'll give you another example. Say you have grandma and grandpa and they die, and you're grieving. You're not a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just the mind's holding on. You're wanting grandma and grandpa to be permanent, but they are impermanent, right? Because they were born, they had to die. But if the mind's craving permanence, the mind's not getting what it wants in that situation. When the mind gets what it wants, when its cravings fulfilled, it'll get pleasant feelings. But when you're not getting what you want, you'll get the painful feelings. So grandma and grandpa being alive, so happy, so wonderful, great, grandma and grandpa are alive. Oh, when they die, the mind doesn't understand this impermanence. It doesn't like it. It has a lack of wisdom, right? So the same way of saying the mind craves permanence is to say the mind does not like impermanence. The mind doesn't like when things start changing in your life. The mind just doesn't like it because it's craving permanence. So whether it's grandma and grandpa dying, or maybe you went to a wedding and somebody went off with another partner, you might have grieved, or people around you might have been grieving. That's because, oh my goodness, your mind's trying to hold on to them and wanting them to be permanent, when in reality they're going off into the world with another person. Or say you got dropped off at university or college, your parents might have been crying, or you might have been crying because the mind's holding on, wanting permanence. Right? Here's another example, something more simple. Say you buy a brand new car. It's your favorite car. It's the best car. You've always been wanting this car. You saved up your money. You went and bought it. You drive off the lot of the dealer. You park it at a store and you go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car. Oh my goodness. You might be so frustrated. It's not the scratch that's causing you to be frustrated. And it's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing you to be frustrated is you're craving permanence. You're wanting this car to look permanently beautiful, and it's just not going to happen. This car is impermanent, right? Now, we're not talking about what's wise and unwise here, because it'd be wonderful to never have your car scratched, but that's not the world we live in. We live in an impermanent world. When we walk through the parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car, but it's only a matter of time before somebody's pushing a shopping cart, the wind kicks up or something happens and boom, your car is going to get scratched. This is impermanence, right? But if you crave permanence, when you see that scratch, you're going to get angry. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to get agitated or annoyed. And it's your craving. It's the mind longing, yearning, and wanting this car to be permanently beautiful when it just is not permanent. It is impermanent. The tires are going to need to be changed. The window washers are going to need to be changed. The paint color is going to fade. The upholstery is going to fade. This car is impermanent. But if you're craving for it to be permanent, you will be shaken up when it experiences change. Right? So this is a little bit of the intellectual learning on the second noble truth. But remember, you're not here to believe anything. you can independently verify what I'm sharing with you. Because what I'm teaching you is your mind is causing your own discontentedness. That it's your craving, desire, attachment, your longing, your yearning. So now, look at a recent situation when you've been angry or irritated or frustrated. Might have been this morning, it might have been yesterday, it might have been last week. Look at that same situation through these fresh eyes. Because at that time, you might have been trying to blame other people for your anger. Right? That's typically what the unenlightened mind does. It can't be me. It's got to be somebody else that's causing this anger. So the mind usually looks for someone to blame. But look at that situation. What was it? There was something your mind was craving. You were longing, yearning for something. And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, you got angry or frustrated or sad. Do you see it? Can you see it? You can independently verify that your mind is causing its own discontentedness. Okay, so that's the second noble truth, that your mind is longing, yearning. There was a student one time who said, David, I can't see it. Because if you can't see it, let me know, right? One time a student was like, hey, I went to work the other day. My house looked beautiful. I came home. My wife had this craft project all over the house, and I got frustrated when I came in. How did my mind cause this? I wasn't even there. She's the one who messed up the house. Isn't she the one who's causing me to be frustrated? I was like, nope. Your mind's craving permanence. You went to work thinking that the house was going to look the same exact way when you came home. And when you came home, you were expecting the house to look that particular way. And when you came home, it didn't look that way. You experienced impermanence, but the mind was craving permanence, right? So the house can't look one particular way permanently. And then that craft project being all over the house, that's not permanent either. Your wife will probably put it away, or maybe you'll help her to put it away. Right? But when the mind's craving permanence, going off to work like that, when you come home, yeah, you'll be frustrated. But this house isn't permanent. It can't look any particular way permanently. Right? So this is where you can independently verify that this is true, that your mind is causing your own discontentedness. Because what the unenlightened mind's going to want to do is blame other people. I know that you've been in arguments, probably trying to adamantly convince somebody else that they are causing you to be angry and they have to stop what they're doing. Because this is what the mind does with a lack of wisdom. When you get angry, you'll either push people away or you'll push the situation away. Or you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. This is like an animal growling and roaring, trying to fear this other animal to do things your way. Or you might put your expectations on people, trying to control them to do things your way. These are the things that the unenlightened mind does with its lack of wisdom. Pushes people away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, and put your expectations on people. Because the mind is trying to get its cravings fulfilled. The mind thinks if I can just get my cravings fulfilled, everything will be perfect. So if the mind's experiencing anger, it might push people away. It might be bitter, harsh, and hostile to try to get that person to do things your way. Or you might put your expectations and put pressure on this person to do things your way. And because of this, you can't live with all beings harmoniously. And that's why you've damaged relationships in certain situations where people have chosen to go out of your life, right? Where they feel pressured from your expectations, or you might have been bitter and harsh and hostile to them, or you might have pushed them away. And this isn't going to solve your problem. Because if this solves your problem, when you push people away, you'd be peaceful for the rest of your life. But it didn't solve it because the real problem is inside your own mind. And that's why you keep getting angry and frustrated over and over and over again. But there's a solution. So the third noble truth is explaining the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. So if the cause is craving, desire, attachment, and that's what's causing the problem, that's what's causing the discontentedness, to eliminate it, you just need to eliminate the craving, desires, attachments. If you can eliminate that longing, yearning, that chasing after things, chasing after the objects of your affection, you can eliminate your discontentedness. You don't have to fix everybody else. That's what the unenlightened mind wants to do, is go out into the world and change everybody else. But you can't change other people. You can't change the way that they think. They have to decide for themselves to do that, right? So if you change your mind, if you eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, you can completely transform your mind and get to the peace and joy. And the fourth noble truth is explaining the elimination of discontentedness is through the Eightfold Path. That it's the core central teaching of the Buddha, where the Buddha is teaching you how to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. And you can independently verify the third noble truth too. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you had, that when you guys broke up and you were so angry, you were missing them maybe, you were lonely, but at some point you were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. I don't care. Just let him go. Right? Or if they want to move across to another place in the world and they don't want to live near me, it's okay. I'm just going to let it go. And when you let it go, your mind got peaceful and you got joyful, right? You were like, okay, it's done. It's over with. Off to the next thing. I'm going to move to the next thing, right? So you can independently verify that when you let go and you don't have craving, desire, attachment, your mind becomes peaceful. So it's the Eightfold Path that is going to teach you how to do that. This is the complete, perfect plan that's going to teach you how to eliminate cravings, desires, attachments. And it all starts with right view. That's why I started with that today. Right view is to have the right view of what's causing your discontentedness. Wrong view would be to blame other people. If you're blaming other people for your discontentedness, that's wrong view. You'll never solve your problem. You'll go around the world trying to teach other people to do things your way. And the problem with this is there's 8 billion people in the world. You're going to have to train 8 billion people to do things your way. You got a big project ahead of you, right? You got to make training centers all over the world. You have to have coordinators in each region of the world. You're going to have a huge logistical system to get people to do things your way. And there's new people being born all the time. So you're going to need to train them too, right? So you got a big job ahead of you. Or you could just train one mind and you can get to peacefulness. Do you know whose mind you need to train? Your own, right? So if you have right view, if you establish right view, it's to understand the Four Noble Truths, that you're experiencing discontentedness because the mind's unenlightened, that the cause of that is craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning. The way to eliminate it is to eliminate your craving, desire, attachment, and then you learn the Eightfold Path, and that's what's training your mind to eliminate it. And this is what a person would do as part of their journey on the path to enlightenment. And starting on Monday, I'm going to be starting a course where it's Monday through Friday, where I'm going to walk you through all the teachings of the Buddha and the foundational ones anyway. And the Eightfold Path is a real focal point of that particular course, where from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., Monday through Friday, when we take an hour and a half lunch, I'm going to gradually walk people through all the foundational teachings. And you can come here if you like, or you can attend by live stream or Zoom or however you'd like. But I'm going to be starting that on Monday. And each month I teach the same course so that students can build up their understanding of the Eightfold Path. Because as you learn and implement this, this is what leads to your peacefulness, to your joy. We use this first book as a source of that program and a lot of others. It's titled Developing a Life Practice, the Path That Leads to Enlightenment. Your life practice is the Eightfold Path. That's the life practice, that if you gradually learn this, it'll completely transform your mind and you'll be able to see the truth for yourself. Because remember, there's no belief in the teachings of the Buddha, because as you're training your mind with these teachings, that you know in situations where you normally get angry and you normally get frustrated, you know that. And when you're in that same situation and you're not angry anymore and you're not frustrated, you'll know it's these teachings that are doing that for you, because you'll see the transformation to your mind. And that's how you'll know you're on the right path. So it's not believing a bunch of things and hoping that something good happens when you die. It's learning now, reflecting now to independently verify the teachings, practice now, and see the results now. And that's the beauty of the teachings of the Buddha, that you see that you're getting more and more peaceful in this life. So do you guys have any questions on the Four Noble Truths or anything else we've been talking about so far? No questions? Okay. So I'm just going to end with this then. We're going to end our class a little bit early here. Is what are the teachings of the Buddha? It's to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. And now you know what's been hurting you. It's the craving, desire, attachments in your mind. Your mind's wanting and expecting things to be a certain way permanently. The mind perceives the problem as external. I need to go out into the world and fix the world. No, you can't change the world. You can't change what other people choose to do. You can only change your own mind. So if you can train your own mind, then you can actually change what you experience, because everything you experience in life is through your mind. So if you purify your mind, you can heal from what's hurting you, and then you'll never need to hurt ever again. But as long as you lack wisdom, you won't know how to train your mind. So while there are harmful things that happen in the world, and that's very unfortunate, you don't have control over whether those things happen or whether they don't happen, because it's other beings that are making those decisions. But if you can train your mind to be unaffected by what other people choose to do, now you can maintain your peacefulness and your joy. So you can actually get to a point where, for example, your mom could die and you wouldn't be upset, because it's not the love that's causing you to be sad and grieve. You can maintain your appreciation and your gratitude and your respect for your parents, but when they die, you don't have to feel like someone pulled the carpet out from under your feet or cut you off at your knees, right? Or if you lose your job, maybe the company goes out of business. Maybe if you're attached to this job, you're going to feel angry or sad or frustrated. But if you're not attached to this job and you know that it's impermanent, well, of course they're going out of business, because it's an impermanent thing. This company is not permanent. So now all I need to do is go get a new job. That's it. I just need to let go of this one and go get a new one. I can maintain my contentedness. No need to be sad or frustrated or angry. The job's over. The company's done. Let's move on. Right? So you can train your mind to practice this middle way. But when you're chasing, you can only be happy if you get what you want. And then you get so exhausted and so tired, your mind swings all the way over to the other side, and now you're exhausted and you're tired because you've been chasing things for so long. That's the two opposite sides of the spectrum. But what the Buddha is teaching you to do is come to the middle, where you can gradually pursue things in life as a goal, as an objective, or an interest. And you can gradually make wise decisions towards what it is you would like to accomplish in the world. But as long as you're chasing with craving, desire, attachment, you'll only be happy if you get what you want. And because the world's impermanent, you can't permanently get what you want. So that means the amount of time that you can be happy becomes less and less and less and less, because your expectations grow in the things that you want. And now this is why people tend to associate old age with being grumpy and irritable. But you don't have to be old and grumpy and irritable. You can be old and happy, old and peaceful, old and joyful. But if you have a bunch of cravings and expectations in your mind, those things can't be permanent, right? So if you want this and this and this and this and this, my bank account has to be this, my mom and dad have to do this, my brothers and sisters have to do this, my boss has to do this, the weather has to be like this, you can only be happy when all those things are matched, when all those things are true. But because you live in an impermanent world, they can't be true permanently. So you can get rid of all that, and you can train your mind to come to the middle way. And you can heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt again. Okay, so this is what the path to enlightenment is. It's purifying your mind, training your mind, understanding that the problem is inside your own mind, and now you just need to purify it. It's not about who's at fault or who's to blame. That's not what the Buddha is teaching you. It's just helping you. He's just helping you understand true reality, that your mind has certain pollutions, and when you purify your mind of that, you'll see the peace and joy coming through. And then his tools and techniques, his path is to help you with those tools and techniques of how to purify your mind. Okay? All right. So I don't see any questions here, and I don't see any online either. So what I'll do then is just end here. I know that we had planned to be together for 3 hours, but it's not even 2 hours, and we were able to cover everything we needed to cover. So even the time of this class is impermanent. Right? We scheduled it for 3 hours, but hey, we're done. So we'll end class, right? It's not permanent. And our class is not permanent. We're spending time together now. We're enjoying our time together, but this isn't permanent. We're going to move on to the next thing. Right? So thank you guys for coming. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your interest in learning the teachings of the Buddha. If you guys would like to learn more, you're more than welcome to let me know. There's classes, courses, retreats. There's even personal guidance that I can help you. It's all available at no cost. Even the books and other things like this, it's all available for you. All you need to do is apply dedication, diligence, and determination, and you'll be able to gradually train your mind towards improvement. And if you would like help from me, I'm here to help you. Okay? So have a lovely rest of your day, and perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class. All right? Take care. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.